At 8:15 a.m. on the 6th of August 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Three days later, it bombed the southern city of Nagasaki. It's the only time in history that nuclear weapons have ever been used in warfare.
まず男女の区別がつかないほど顔がむちゃくちゃです。
Land of hell, Hiroshima was. And that was a man-made hell.
Now, with conflicts being fought across the world, talk about escalation and the threat of a new nuclear arms race is becoming louder and louder.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Оставляем за собой право применить ядерное оружие в случае агрессии против России и Белоруссии.
核の被害っていうのはね、広島で京都は昔からですよね。今の問題だということですよね。
On the 80th anniversary of the bombings, I'm travelling to Japan to understand how we got to the events of August 1945 and what we can learn from them to stop history repeating itself.
Three nations toasted the consummation of an infamous alliance, the Axis Military Pact of 1940. Germany and Italy, who had plunged Europe into war, became fully united with Japan in the strategy of terror.
On the 7th of December 1941, a year after entering World War II, the Japanese Air Force launched a surprise attack on a US naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, killing over 2,400 people.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
In the months that followed, America started work on a secret operation, using nuclear fission to create the world's first atomic bomb. 3 years later, after Japan rejected an ultimatum to stop fighting following Germany's surrender, America dropped an experimental bomb on the city of Hiroshima.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. It is an atomic bomb.
Approximately 78,000 of Hiroshima's 350,000 residents were killed instantly. 3 days later, the US launched a second bombing mission on the city of Nagasaki. Approximately 40,000 of Nagasaki's 240,000 citizens died.
The battleship Missouri becomes the scene of an unforgettable ceremony, marking the complete and formal surrender of Japan.
Japan's surrender brought the war in Asia to an abrupt end.
We actually have Laura Baker with us, who's the BBC's China correspondent. Tell us about this incredible trip you've made.
I think that's the real reason.
As a journalist, I've spent years looking at climate change, all the problems and the solutions. I've looked at pandemics, asking what the next one might be after COVID that brings the world to a standstill. But there's one threat that I haven't looked at, and that's the threat of nuclear war. And now feels like the right time to find out what really happened at Hiroshima.
To do that, I'm somewhere I didn't expect to be.
It can feel really distant. The bomb was 80 years ago, it was 9,000 miles away, but actually the effect and the legacy of the bomb can be felt here in the UK today. And I've come to Wales to meet someone who's had to live through that.
Land of hell, Hiroshima was. And that was a man-made hell. Man made it. People made it.
Kyoko Gibson was born in Hiroshima, 3 years after the bomb exploded. Today, she lives near Swansea, having married a British man, a long way from the Japan she left in the 1960s, where people were often reluctant to face what had happened.
A lot of people, they don't tell they are from Hiroshima, or they moved away. Like my father, he left us when I was 7 years old, and I never see him. Never see him.
Never saw him again?
No, no. I think he didn't want to deal life he had in Hiroshima.
Your life today is still affected by what happened. Can you tell me some of how it still affects you?
Yeah, I was a physically weak child. I had a stroke, I had a tumor, and recently I had 2 breast cancer operation.
With your family, when you spoke to your husband, were they surprised at what you'd been through as well as your parents?
I think so, but my children never mentioned.
No?
No.
So you've not spoken with them?
No. And they hesitated to ask because it's so painful thing. So I'm quite interested in what my daughter going to say this afternoon.
8 decades on, the spectre of nuclear warfare is still with us. In newspaper headlines, in TV shows, movies, and computer games, it seems to be everywhere you look. But there is one country where that nightmare became a reality.
I have a lot of questions about that day. It's difficult to comprehend what actually happened during the bombing. Did the people that experienced it have any idea of what was happening? Did they even know what an atomic bomb was? And the people that ordered the bombing, did they know that what they were about to do would change history? Here in Hiroshima, I have the chance to speak with some of the few people left on Earth who've actually experienced an atomic bomb. What can we learn from them in a world where the threat of nuclear war seems less distant and feels like it's edging closer? This was your house.
ここ私が原爆の時にですね、ここへ住んどったわけです。
Hiroshima was an important military target. The army coordinated the defense of Western Japan from its headquarters here. Keiko, then aged 8. Mikio, who was 13. And Kenji, 6. Are the last generation of survivors.
これでやってこれだろう思うんですが、この人は東京で今まだ生きとる人おるけど、この近くでほとんどもういないですねこれ。
Previous night, that there were warning, and we rushed to the shelter many times.
This is you and your family?
Nothing happened. But my father said he had a kind of inspiration. Today, something might happen. Then because of that, you shouldn't go to school.
Shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning, the B-29 bomber Enola Gay was heard in the skies. The decision to bomb Hiroshima was confirmed just an hour earlier.
My brother, he could even saw the small black thing.
He could see the bomb
he was
drop.
watching.
The bombers' target? This bridge, right in the heart of the city.
I was alone on the road. Then I felt the flash. Everything I was seeing turned to white.
で爆風が2階あこの角から爆風が2階建ての爆風が数十秒してわーっと寄せ寄ってきたんで。
瞬間もう家が崩れて真っ暗ですね、埃で真っ暗になるんですけどもで一体何が起きたんだろうというんでね考えも及ばない、状況に呆然としておりました。
まあ大変なその時はですね私もよう生き延びた思いますわ。
Nearly a quarter of the city's population were instantly killed. Many of them were school children. Only buildings built out of concrete and metal, like Honkawa Primary School, now a museum, were left standing.
I could hear kids playing and laughing in the playground upstairs because there's still a school next door. And I just thought about the fact that this melted glass and metal, it came through concrete walls, it's come through a concrete floor, scorch marks underground, and you just think, what chance would a human, what chance would those kids back then in that playground have had to survive that? Something that powerful. Yeah.
The true scale and horror of the blast quickly became clear.
First, I smelled the burnt hair. Skin was peeling off, and like rag and clothes, burnt clothes.
You were only 13 when this happened. Had you any idea what had just happened when you got out of the wreckage of your house?
まず男女の区別がつかないほど顔がむちゃくちゃです。どういう状態かと言いますと熱線で頭の髪の毛がですね縮れてしまって逆立ってます。その時は怒りも覚えました。もう人間をこういうふうにしてしまってというようなね怒りがありました。やはりね生きているのが辛いと今でもあるんです。もう死ぬも地獄だけど生きるも地獄だというような感じがあるわけですね。
This is kind of the first time that the scale of how big it was has hit me. Because this looks like a film set. Because you learn about the bombings like the Blitz, but this was one bomb. And the idea that one bomb, one moment, one button could do all of this destruction on this scale is really hard to get your head around. It is just a wasteland. As far as the eye can see.
As our survivors struggled to understand what had happened to them and their families, seemingly healthy people began to die.
それはもう原爆落ちた時にはですね、直後はですね、大体紙が抜け、火入れたらバーッと抜けるわけですよ。
Surviving the bomb was just the beginning. The blast released enormous amounts of toxic radiation that made people sick in the following days and weeks.
で紙が抜けたらもう死後でなくなるわけですよ。で子供ながら私は毎朝起きたら紙をパッと見て抜けたらもう大騒ぎして泣きじゃくったのを覚えとるんですが、その恐怖感がずっと続いて30か40かぐらいの時にその放射能によって遺伝子が破壊されたり傷んだりしていろんながんが出るんじゃないの知ったのはだいぶ後ですよね。当時は分からんかったですね。
The US and its allies occupied Japan for 7 years. The American authorities heavily censored any reporting of the effects of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And although the US set up a commission to research the medical effects of the bombings, it would take decades for the world to discover the impacts on fertility, mental health, and physical well-being. In the absence of reliable information, many survivors found themselves the subject of misinformation, rumour, fear, and outright prejudice.
私が26歳の時にですね、東京へ出ました。で、隣にいた人がですね、君ふるさとどこかって言うんで広島だと言ったらビクッとしましてですね、大丈夫と言うんですね。そしてさーっと席を立っていったことを思いまして、映ると思ったんですね、その人もね。
I know my friends and relatives who couldn't get married or have a wedding ceremony because this woman is from Hiroshima. Relatives know that we don't want such a woman who were exposed to the bomb.
A long-running study by the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, a US-Japanese organisation, has tracked over 120,000 individuals, many since the 1950s. The Foundation's lifespan study found increased risks of some cancers. Even those who weren't there at the time, like Satoshi Tanaka, feel the blast affected them.
それからね、私は合計6つのがんの手術をしましてね、入退院を繰り返し、頑張っております。
Satoshi wasn't in the blast zone on August 6th, but was exposed to the radiation in the aftermath. He was just 18 months old when his mum, looking for missing relatives, carried him back into the city.
You've experienced effects from that, you think too, right?
私のような入試被爆で比較的低線量で被爆をした人とは晩年に年を取ってから影響が出ますよという統計資料があるんですよ。この81歳になってね、まだ原爆の影響がまだいつどこにがんが出るか分かんないような心配をするような状況、これが原爆の恐ろしさなんです。
In 2024, Satoshi and Keiko were part of the group of survivors to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to bring about a world free of nuclear weapons. But they feel their work is still unfinished.
爆心地がここです。私が原爆にあったのはここです。
For Mikio and the other survivors, they are seeing echoes of the past in what's happening today.
What was it made you, Saiki-san, decide to share your story?
その時にウクライナの ロシアの侵攻が始まりました。でその時にいやこうしちゃおれない、どうしても証言しないといけない点です。
Good evening, my fellow citizens.
The world came close to nuclear apocalypse in the 1960s as the United States and the Soviet Union faced off in the Cold War.
Of what Castro calls Yankee imperialistic warmongers.
By the mid-1980s, there were 60,000 nuclear weapons poised to unleash nuclear Armageddon.
Many people think these weapons serve a useful purpose and actually prevent war. They believe that nations will be so afraid of the possible effects of a nuclear war, they'll avoid any war at all costs.
Deterrence. The fear of a devastating retaliatory attack is a major reason nukes still exist. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, there are around 12,000 nuclear weapons worldwide, in the hands of 9 countries, although Israel has never confirmed or denied having them. But these weapons are many, many times more powerful than those used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
The number of explosions were heard in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 reignited the Cold War and the very real possibility of nukes being used in conflict.
Оставляем за собой право применить ядерное оружие в случае агрессии против России и Белоруссии.
Зачем грозить ядерным оружием бескрайней России, сидя на, в общем-то, маленьком острове? Остров столь мал, что лишь одной ракеты «Сармат» достаточно, чтобы его утопить раз и навсегда.
The headlines seem to be ratcheting up.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Nuclear powers are once again in conflict with each other.
Overnight, India says it bombed 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Pakistani Prime Minister says India will pay a price.
Leaders are openly talking about using these weapons again.
We'll procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make these UK aircraft available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary.
It's nightmarish, the things that we've been told. There's this conflict between wanting weapons to protect yourself so this doesn't happen to you, while at the same time seeing what it's done and wanting nothing to do with them whatsoever.
This flame in the Peace Memorial Park, once the heart of the city, is meant to burn until every nuclear weapon on Earth has been destroyed.
I just don't know when the flame will go out. Coming to today, me speaking to you now, what is it that you want your message to be?
Remembering is our legacy, I think. Without telling, without showing what happened, no one cannot understand clearly. So before I die, I have to tell what I saw, because telling, warning is the important thing.
This one is Mommy, and that is Auntie Yoko.
Oh, that's so
And
you look
this-
like twins.
I know.
Back in Swansea, Kyoko's daughter Liz and her granddaughter Violet have joined us.
And this is the only photograph of me.
That's really sad, actually, that that's the only one.
I'm interested to find out what they think about the events in August 1945, especially since Kyoko only told her family what happened to her in Hiroshima in the last couple of years.
Why did you decide to start talking about it?
Even now, quite difficult to talk about it. As you know, Mommy will be 77 this year, so I want to do it. I have to do it for the future people.
So I was really interested from both your kind of point of view, how much you knew about it.
Violet and I, we went to Japan 2 years ago, and we spent some time in Hiroshima as well, which was something I think that all of a sudden you realised, you know, what a massive impact that has on our family. So it was a great opportunity, but it was quite scary.
Because you've both got quite a unique, not just connection, but insight for people in the UK of what that event means. And I'm wondering, has it changed how you feel about nuclear weapons? And because we're 80 years on now, do you feel really strongly about it?
What I want to do in uni goes into like nuclear power and stuff like that, but don't use it towards things that'll hurt people, you know, use it towards things that make your economy better, your country better, power-wise.
What is it from your granny's story that you think they should know? What's the message that people your age need to take away?
You need to see the impact it's had on people, how it's hurt people, and just not bring that kind of pain again. Because with technology getting better, it's just going to be worse next time if it happens again.
It's all too easy to take out the human side of things and just make it about the bomb itself, or like Violet said, that's definitely the human factor needs to be involved here as well.
It's the human stories that the survivors are determined to keep telling. Satoshi and Kenji have met up next to the Hiroshima Peace Park. This monument commemorates those whose bodies were never found. Satoshi's aunt was one of them.
やっぱり原爆受け取る系、病気やらなったらいつも思うよね、やっぱり原爆の関係。そうそう、ちょっとね。俺の息子が結婚する時とか、孫ができた時とかね、そういう節目節目にね。俺でこっちは大体一番ひどい。そりゃそうです。そんな災害ないですよ。被害者の半分ぐらいがわからんよな。名前もわからんし、元がわからんしね。生きといてるないのが7万くらいもおるね。じゃあお参りしましょう。線香はないけど。
The rest of the world, we're lucky because here and Nagasaki are still the only places to have experienced a nuclear attack. Deterrence compromise has worked so far. But for the survivors, their worry is that the leaders, the politicians, the generals, the people in charge of the nuclear weapons aren't listening to their stories or their experience. They're not making the connection between the weapons and this here. And what happens when that last generation, the last generation of the only people to really have experienced what an atomic bomb is like are gone? How will we get our leaders to really understand what it means to push the button?